Colleen.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My name's Colleen. I lead the programming for the Battery, and I'm really excited for tonight's event, what we've titled From Resilience to Celebration, an intimate look at San Francisco's Chinatown. Our presenters are photographer Dick Evans and journalist Kathy Chin Leong. Dick Evans is the creator of the project, and he spent 3 years taking over 5,000 photos to capture the essence of this community. During that time, he partnered with Kathy, a Chinese-American writer who has covered Chinatown for the New York Times. She conducted more than 100 interviews with Chinatown leaders, residents, and business owners. My impressions of this book are that they're some of the most beautiful and most intimate photos of Chinatown that I've seen. When we had the opportunity to bring this talk to the Battery, I knew that we had to do it because we're in the Chinatown neighborhood and we're right around the corner. And I actually saw a picture of Kathy Fang, who has done lots of events for us at the Battery as well. So it was nice to see her face. During tonight's talk, if you have questions or comments, please type them in the Q&A or the chat box, which you can see down at the bottom, and we can answer them towards the end of the slideshow. And I didn't know this, but this project is an entire nonprofit venture, and all of the revenues go towards the Chinese Cultural Center of San Francisco and Heyday Books, two nonprofit organizations in the Bay Area. And we'll be sure to share a link to purchase the book in the chat. And I'll pass it over to Dick and Kathy. Enjoy the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Colleen. Thank you to you and the Battery for organizing and hosting the event tonight. When we set this up, we did not realize it was going to coincide with the vice presidential debate, nor did we realize that that debate might have the level of significance that now seems to be attributed to it. So we do appreciate you spending your time with us, and trust us, you'll be able to catch up on CNN or MSNBC and watch the highlights, and we'll finish before it's over anyway. Before I get into the slideshow and some of the backstories and discussion, we have a short 2-minute video trailer that we're going to play here to give you a snapshot view. Okay, now that you've seen what I would call the Cliff Notes version of the talk, I would like to go into a little bit more detail, tell you some of the stories and a little bit about the images involved. I would just repeat what Colleen said at the beginning. Please, if you'll take advantage of your Q&A button or your chat button. And during the slideshow, just send us a comment along the way or note a question. And at the end, we'll come back to those, and Kathy and I will scroll through them and answer as many as we can. So this first image is one that is an iconic street image. And given that the Battery is only blocks away from this image, many of you may have seen this image. This is on Grant Street, incidentally, the oldest street in San Francisco, if you didn't know that. But it's Grant Street looking north. And it's what we often think of when we think of Chinatown. Red lanterns strung between buildings with colorful facades and this very elaborate facade work on the outside and the pagoda style roofs. And it's no surprise, I think, that we chose one of these facades, in fact, what you see right here, to be the cover of the book. This is quite a historic building, and it's one that used to house the restaurant, the Four Seas, which is a very well-known restaurant. It now actually houses Mr. Juice, which some of you may have been to, which is, I think, the only Michelin-starred restaurant currently in Chinatown. Other iconic images that you'll recognize, I think, are the historic street lamps, which were reproduced to be exactly like they were historically. The buildings with the pagoda rooftops. But none of, and this is the East-West Bank, which used to be actually the telephone exchange for Chinatown. So upstairs in that building, there used to be a fleet of young women who were seated there in long panels, plugging in calls and connecting telephone users. But this is nothing like what the original Chinatown was. Many of us may think of this as Chinatown, and it is old and it is historic. It's over 100 years old, many of these buildings. But the original Chinatown, when the immigrants first came to work on the railroads and the gold mines in the mid 1800s, Chinatown itself was a very crowded, low-cost housing area, virtually a ghetto. But that Chinatown was wiped out in the 1906 earthquake and then the fires that followed that. Here you see a shot of working on the railroad. Here. And interestingly, Chinatown was rebuilt after that in what was at the time termed Oriental architecture. And ironically, it was actually designed by Caucasian architects who were working from photos or drawings from China of architecture that people had brought back. And there was also a controversy about whether Chinatown would stay where it was or would be forced out to the outskirts of San Francisco, such as Hunters Point and that area. But fortunately, the Chinese community banded together and were able to reach a deal with the city fathers to keep it where it had always been. And as part of that deal, agreed to build it in this quote, Chinese architecture style and to be a tourist attraction as well as a living neighborhood. So that's why we think of Grant Street and those buildings now as being representative of Chinatown. Now, those that came to San Francisco and California from southern China, and most were from southern China and hence were Cantonese. They came through Angel Island in the Bay, which I'm sure many of you know, which was the Ellis Island equivalent in the West Coast. So much of the immigration coming in from Asia came through Angel Island, and especially from China. The first Chinese person, ethnically Chinese, that came to San Francisco was in 1848. And at that time, the city of San Francisco was only about 1,000 people. Well, the next year it was 30,000 due to the gold rush. And a few years after that, it was 300,000. And with that came a large population of Chinese, as well as many other nationalities. Now, when the Chinese immigrants came to Angel Island, they were not treated well at all. They were quarantined. They were forced to prove their papers. They were, in many cases, discriminated against, discouraged, and they were treated as a number. And let me just read this because I think it's so powerful. This, by the way, this is carved in the wood in one of these detention halls on Angel Island. Everybody's got a number. I think my number is 80340. They would put your number on the blackboard, and you know that you have to go to interrogation or a health checkup. They didn't use names. On the day they let you go, your number is on the blackboard and it says San Francisco. And this was carved by an 11-year-old boy as late as 1939. But as dramatic as that first 100 years of Chinatown was, like any community, it's continued to evolve since then. And there's been plenty of significant evolution during that time. There's been the controversial evictions in the International Hotel dispute in 1977. There was the 20th century version of Tong Wars in the 70s and 80s, and to the current COVID crisis that we're all facing today. Here is one of two statues that are quite significant in Chinatown today. This one is in Portsmouth Square, which is the heart of Chinatown. And you see two different angles of it here. This is looking at Chinatown behind it. This is the Goddess of Democracy replica. And it's a 10-foot tall bronze, but it's a replica of the 50-foot tall statue made out of wood and paper that was built by students in the 1989 Tiananmen Square uprising in Beijing. Another important statue is this one in St. Mary's Square, which remembers the treatment of young Chinese, Korean, and Filipino girls who were sex slaves interred by the Japanese in World War II. So if you look back, that you'll note the history of San Francisco's Chinatown is a history of resilience, survival, but also celebration. In writing this book, Kathy interviewed over 100 people and organizations, and I'd like to hand it over to her now for some of the stories and some of the things she learned in that process. Kathy?
Thank you, Dick. I love this mural. I first saw it when I was 5 years old. I was on my way to get my shots as a preschooler. And I remember we would pass this mural on the side of a public building every time we walked through Chinatown. So you can imagine my surprise and delight when I came to the Chinese Historic Museum of America, where it hangs today, and saw it almost 50 years later. So this painting is 5 feet high and nearly 18 feet long. It was painted by James Leong, no relation. And when it was put up, it stirred quite a bit of controversy in the Chinese community because they felt these images were stereotypes that they wanted to get away from. But each panel is historically accurate, starting from the Chinese that were in China on the first panel on the left, all the way spanning 100 years to the panel on the right, where a family is established in America. Now, when he found out about all this criticism, he was so hurt, he left America and went to Europe for the rest of his career. Meanwhile, this mural was discarded and it disappeared for many years. It was rediscovered in a rec room in Chinatown several of its panels were used as a ping pong table. So they were reunited and put inside the museum. And when it was brought together again, they called James Leong, who is now living in Seattle. He was towards the end of his career. He came back and retouched them. And he was honored with a reception. And this was wonderful because he passed away a few years later. In front of this mural is Su Li. She is an expert in Chinese American history. So what's the significance here? Well, like a detective, she recovered a set of 12 extremely rare watercolors by the late Jake Lee. And here's one showing factory shoe workers in the 1800s when Chinatown happened to be a light industrial center. The original works, all 12, were hung inside the very prestigious Khan's Chinese restaurant. And when it was sold in the 1990s, the paintings mysteriously disappeared. Well, Sue hunted them down. Some were abandoned in a busboy's garage, others were sold at auction. But these rare works depict harsh realities as well as joyous times in Chinese American history.
A shared history in Chinatown, of course, led to a shared culture. And the biggest cultural event of the year is clearly the Lunar New Year celebration, which is now a destination tourism event. It's a week-long celebration. Perhaps some of you have been to it, capped by the parade, and is attended now by hundreds of thousands annually. Lions and dragons abound in the mile-long parade and are accompanied by floats and stilt walkers. Here's a photo of a couple of West Portal Elementary School children who are dressed in Monkey King costumes and are stilt walkers, as is this young woman with the umbrella. She's also a stilt walker. Good luck gifts are typically distributed during the Lunar New Year sign, and it's in whatever sign of the zodiac for that year. This was from 2019, so these are little piglets. But the Lunar New Year celebration is not the only colorful custom in Chinatown. There are many more. And just to name two, one is the face-changing show. You saw the picture there, or the annual Fall Moon Festival, which is just wrapping up right now for this year.
Rick is right. Everybody loves a festival. And if Bruce Lee were alive, he would be 80 years old, and now he would be able to see that he's being paid tribute to at the AT&T Park Bruce Lee Tribute Night. So this action hero movie star was more than just another movie star figure. He was Bruce Lee, the very first Chinese American action hero. And to Chinese boys and men, that meant a lot. Because up until he came on the scene in the late 60s and early 70s, Chinese men were portrayed in the movies as extras. They were houseboys, they were evil emperors, they were railroad workers. If it was a lead role, it'd be played by a white person who would have taped up eyes and spoke English in very stereotypic Chinese accents. Now, Bruce Lee changed the life of this man on the left. This is Jeff Chin. And he was picked on a lot when he was a little kid, and he hated being Chinese. One night he was looking at the poster of Bruce Lee hanging on his bedroom, and he felt like Bruce Lee was reaching out to him, speaking to him, and telling him not to give up and to have hope. And ever since that night, as a young boy in junior high, his life was changed. He took up martial arts and he started collecting Bruce Lee memorabilia. Today, he's got 10,000 items, more than that. And he's become one of the top leading collectors. And in fact, his collection is so precious, it's gone to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and it's gone all over the world. Today, he continues to keep up his Kung Fu. And in the center is Sifu Francis Durr, who teaches at San Francisco Wing Chun. He's the founder, and he's also my cousin. And he loves to tell the story of his father who trained him. His father is Ben Durr, who trained and sparred with Bruce Lee when they were teenagers. Now we go to Skyline Memorial Park, and I like to call it the Ritz-Carlton of cemeteries. By the busload every year during Qingming, you have Taoist priests and families come. Qingming honors dead ancestors every year during the spring. When Dick and I got a tour of this place, which is just vast, we got a tour with a golf cart. And the vistas are just amazing. And if you look on the website, you'll see aerial video footage by drone. So you can choose your plot with the best feng shui. During Qingming, families typically will burn fake money so that their relatives can use it in the afterlife. And at this high-end cemetery, Qingming is celebrated to the public with a free lunch, entertainment, and even goodie bags for the children. What a contrast. In the 1800s, Chinese could not be buried in the same cemeteries as white people. But today, everything's changed. You can be buried anywhere, and you can make any kind of headstone that you want.
Many of you may be familiar with Tai Chi, may even practice it and enjoy it. But it's a Chinese tradition, of course, and often now it's early morning exercises or in performances, although it's based originally on martial arts. During the photography shoots, which spanned 2018 and 2019, we learned in 2019 that there is actually an International Tai Chi Day every year, and we learned it a couple weeks in advance. So we worked with the Chinese Culture Center, and who actually have rights to this bridge, which crosses Kearny Street. And we let them put out an announcement that we would supply free tea and pastries and a free instructor for anyone who wanted to come participate in International Tai Chi Day in exchange for us letting us take some photos of them doing so. So we had to turn out of 30 or so. And you see some of them here on the Kearny Street Bridge. We also, during the course of our photo shoots and interviews, found this woman who is a Tai Chi master, Sifu, just like Kathy's cousin. And her name is Xu Fen Xiao. And she was quite willing to pose around Chinatown in front of some of the murals, like this dragon mural by Luke Dragon, and in front of some of the other iconic landmarks. But she's was very engaging. It was interesting. We found her because she is actually married to an herbalist whose photos we were taking. And we noticed up on the shelf in his office, there were all these big trophies. So we thought he had done something special or had sponsored some little league teams or something. And we asked, and he said, no, those are my wife's trophies from competing in Tai Chi. So that's when we immediately asked her to work with us. Here in this next photo are a couple of the participants on Tai Chi Day who had a great time and were willing to pose looking very satisfied and well exercised after the Tai Chi lesson.
Also striking a Zen-like pose is Baby Rose. And she's not going to remember her little coming out party, but her parents will. Now, this tradition is called a red egg and ginger party. And it's celebrated when the child is 1 month old and all friends and relatives are invited. Now, we had a hard time finding a red egg and ginger party because it turns out that a lot of families have chosen to bring it in-house, or they choose other large venues in the Chinese shopping centers around the East and South Bay. But we did find this one at Far East Cafe on Grant Street. And here you see Ron Tong in the front on the left. He's the proud grandfather of baby Rose, and he sponsored this wonderful gathering. Now, it's called a red egg and ginger party because you have to have red eggs. Red eggs symbolize good luck and fertility, and ginger symbolizes energy and strength. And so for this photo, they happened to put the ginger to the buffet table, but I guarantee you they were there. In ancient times, Chinese coins had holes in them and they were strung together with a string. And then later on, when paper bills were invented, they were folded in half and tucked inside these round envelopes. Today, red envelopes are synonymous with Chinese New Year. And kids love Chinese New Year the most. It's traditional to give a person, a child or a single person, a pair of envelopes, and inside the envelopes are fresh bills, a pair of them, to represent double happiness. Now, we have our next Chinese New Year starts February 12th, and it'll be Year of the Ox. And if you celebrate it, I would recommend that you go to the bank early to get those crisp bills because they do run out. Now, when a girl gets engaged and she follows Chinese tradition, she will go to a tailor shop to have a cheongsam tailor-made. And speaking from experience, these dresses are not made for sitting down. At my wedding banquet of 500 to 600 guests, I changed my regular wedding dress into my cheongsam, and I escaped sitting down because we were standing up going from table to table, just toasting all 60 tables, and that itself took an hour. So I avoided a lot of embarrassment by not having to sit down. Now, today, times have changed. You don't have to go to a tailor to get your cheongsam made. In fact, you can wear different types of Chinese dresses, and you can even order your Chinese dress on the internet if you want to. Meanwhile, the wedding tea ceremony is a very treasured tradition, but we found, just like the red egg and ginger party, fewer and fewer Chinese couples are honoring it. However, Leanna and Michael are the exception. On their knees, they will present their tea to their elders before the ceremony. And in turn, the parents and grandparents, one couple at a time, they receive the tea and they offer them money and jewelry. And at this reception, the parents had an opportunity to express appreciation, to welcome Leanna and Michael into their family. Now, the tea ceremony was conducted in East meets West style, because here you had this ancient Chinese tradition, but right after it was done, the couple celebrated with their wedding party and guests with a taco truck and all kinds of wonderful salsas. So this shows that in the Bay Area, because we have so many cultures, you can embrace all cultures and enjoy your tradition. Now, brides aren't the only ones who receive jewelry. A Chinese woman, when she decides it's the right time, will gather her grandchildren or children together and start handing out the jewelry. And in recent years, there was a jewelry scam where people would come into Chinatown. These would be a couple of ladies from China, let's say, and they would go up to someone and say, you are carrying bad luck. And what they would do is tell a grandmother she's carrying bad luck and tell her to go to a fortune teller with all her money in a bag and have it cleansed. Well, of course, she surrenders the bag and it's taken away. And when it's brought back, she's told to go home. And when she opens it up, there's no more jewelry in it. And there's a water bottle instead. Well, the good news is the police have taken care of the scam, and now those scammers have gone, but they've gone to other Chinatowns. So we're just hoping that it won't return again. Now, in ancient times, if you wore a gold necklace or jade bracelet, it would protect you from evil spirits. And that's what makes Chinese jewelry so unique, because it's not just ornamental, it's there to possess powers, as believed. And it's also been used as money during times of war. Now, we really wanted to get a photo of this woman. This is Lisa Pollard, and she's the director of the Green Street Mortuary Band. Now, she knows Chinatown inside and out, and she's been walking these streets for decades. Now, the Green Street Mortuary Band helps Chinese families say goodbye to their loved ones. Now, the music here is of the highest caliber because these are musicians who are professional union musicians. They play for the San Francisco Orchestra, and they also play for the San Francisco Opera. Now, when Amy's grandmothers passed away, she hired them. Now, I want to pause up this mural because it's one of my favorites. It is a scene, a very typical Chinatown scene of a young girl, a young modern girl, who is walking by an old-fashioned tailor shop. She is wearing on her wrist a jade bracelet, probably given to her by her mother or her grandmother. She's holding a bag of oranges and a box of pink bakery goods. The oranges represent good luck and gold, and the bakery goods are sweet treats for sweet life. And so she's going to visit a relative or another Chinese friend, and that is just a typical scene. And this is my family sharing dim sum, otherwise known as going to yum cha. We used to do this every weekend. Now, little plates of chicken feet and tripe and gizzards, that's not exotic fare for Cantonese. That's just typical everyday dishes.
Chinatown naturally has a very strong sense of community. It's geographically a small area, a very dense population, one of the most dense anywhere west of Manhattan. So naturally, community is very important. And that's led to the existence of many nonprofits that are community oriented. This is one of the important ones, the Chinese Culture Center. I mentioned it earlier in regard to Tai Chi Day. It is also our partner, our local cultural partner in the book project. So we work together with them, and we coordinated the launch with them last week, and we work with them throughout and very much appreciate their help. The sense of community you feel if you ever take a stroll through Portsmouth Square. And considering where the Battery is, I would guess many of you have walked through Portsmouth Square. So if you've done so anytime prior to the COVID period, you'll notice it was filled with people any time of almost day or night, except the very deepest night. It is the oldest plaza in San Francisco, as you may know, and is actually the founding site of San Francisco. But throughout the plaza, as you walk through it, you'll see all of these groups, women and men, typically playing cards or mahjong or just talking. And the day that I shot this photo was actually a sunny day. And as I was walking through, I was stopping and taking some of the photos of the women playing cards. And then it just started to pour. And when it started to pour, I thought, okay, this is over. Fold up my camera, head to the car and head home. But instead, the umbrellas came out. Everybody held on to their same hand of cards. They just moved a few yards to be better protected under the bridge there. And with their umbrellas out, never missed a beat and continued playing cards. We also got to go inside one of the, well, actually several benevolent associations around the Portsmouth Square area who host card games and mahjong and reading rooms and many activities. This one is on a Saturday morning when a lot of the people gather from that benevolent association to play mahjong. The community spirit is very much evident in the annual Miss Chinatown USA pageant. And you might ask, why is there a separate Miss Chinatown pageant? Well, the sad answer is that for decades, young Chinese American women were both openly and covertly excluded from being part of the Miss America and other broader pageants. So they created their own. And even though that no longer is true, and you, of course, do see Chinese American contestants in a Miss America contest, the Miss Chinatown has continued, the tradition has continued and lives on and is still strong today. The contestants are judged not only on their poise and beauty, but also on their achievement and their contribution to the community. And in the prior picture, you saw Miss Chinatown 2019, Catherine Wu, who is devoting time to Chinese bilingual education. But we also found out, and we're very surprised, she has another skill, and that is that she's an Olympic level archer. So quite a contrast in skills. So we took some photos of her with her gear, and just take a look at that bow that she has here. That is a serious bow that she's holding. Now the example of exclusion of young women from Miss America also pertains to other organizations like the YMCA, where Chinese were not welcomed in YMCAs around San Francisco. So they decided to build their own. And with support from the Y, created the Chinatown YMCA, which is still very thriving and vibrant organization. It also applies, you may know, to the fact that there's a separate hospital. Today, a very modern hospital, but one that offers both American medicine and some traditional Chinese medicine. A very modern, excellent hospital.
You know, I'm so glad they have places like the YMCA to offer to kids and adults to de-stress. Chinatown is the densest community outside of Manhattan. It's only 1/5 of a square mile, and there are about 15,000 to 30,000 people who live there. So you can imagine that your home is the size of a closet. It's shared with 4 or 5 other people. This is called the single renter occupancy apartment lifestyle. And you have no access to washing machines, so you're hand washing everything. You have no access to dryers, so you hand dry all your laundry outside. You have no place for the kids to play, and you have no place for them to do homework. And you line up to share a restroom, and you line up to use the kitchen that you share with all your neighbors. Now, one of Chinatown's heroes is Reverend Norman Fong, pictured on the left. He's a rock musician, also former executive director of the Chinatown Community Development Center. Now, when he was raised in Chinatown, he remembers the day his family was told that they would be evicted. And it was so humiliating for them that he has become an activist for renters' rights ever since he was very young. Now, during this photo shoot, a young woman came up to him and she asked if he could come and visit her grandmother. Her grandmother was too sick to go to the doctor. So we are very privileged to follow him upstairs and see him just walk tenderly to her and hold her hands in his and just whisper a prayer. We're very fortunate to see that. Oh, to be young again. It was a really cold day and a rainy day on the day of this photo shoot. We sat with kids inside their boat and my notebook was getting just saturated with water and the boat was tipping and Dick's camera almost fell into the water. Do you remember that, Dick?
I do, and we were in the amateur boat, remember?
Yeah.
We were in the one with the least experienced rowers because we were filming the best rowers.
Yes. And the really cool thing about this particular team is that these are at-risk youth. So this is run by the Community Youth Center. And in hosting this Dragon Boat team, The kids don't have to pay for anything. They don't pay for uniforms or rental gear or coach time or anything. It's all free. And unlike other organizations and high schools that would make you try out to get the best of the best athletes, anyone who wants to join the Dragon Boat team gets in. And so here you have high schoolers and junior hires all together. Now the Dragon Boat team, this one, is really transforming the lives of these at-risk kids who otherwise would have nothing to do, and they might be tempted to join the wrong crowd. So it was great to see the older kids treat the younger ones like siblings. This is Bella Chan, and she admitted that before she joined the team, she was not athletic at all. One of her girlfriends said, "You got to join the team, it's so much fun." Well, Bella became the team captain, and ever since doing dragon boat racing, she says it's improved her leadership skills and also boosted her confidence. Now, when I was young, I have to admit, I did not like Chinese ways. I did not like Chinese traditions. But things have really changed, I'm happy to say, because a little girl like this, Yuhan Chen, is only 6 years old. She's brought to the Chinese New Year parade and festivities. And here she is picking up a calligraphy brush for the first time at this New Year event. And we find out she's really excellent at Chinese calligraphy. This is Tyler Pham, and he's happily sampling dragon beard candy. Now, dragon beard candy was the exquisite dessert of emperors back in ancient times. And very few people know how to make it. And we're lucky because in Chinatown, we have a young man named Derek Tam who left his engineering job to open up Dragon Papa. And here you see little Tyler making a beard of his own. Now, this particular dessert that's dipped, when it's dipped in peanuts, is especially delicious. Just a block away is Dim Sum Corner. And here you see 14-year-old Tanner Young mixing a boba drink at Dim Sum Corner, his mother's restaurant in Chinatown. Now, during this photo shoot, we were able to get his younger sister, Elle, and she happily posed for us for an hour. But after an hour, she kind of got tired of us, and she said she wanted to find her mom. So here it is, wet and rainy, as you can see in her cool purple boots, and she ran away from us. So it was quite the challenge keeping up with her and finding her. We found her sitting on a bar stool at her mother's restaurant, Dim Sum Place, happily having a snack. Now, these buildings are not just ornamental buildings. These are called family association buildings, and there's more than 200 in Chinatown. Back in the 1800s, when you landed in Chinatown, you would look up your village. Your association would be known by village name or your last name. And when you go there, the elders would open the door, welcome you, and help you get set up with a job and help you get set up with lodging. Often these rooms feature shrines. And I want you to note that these are private clubhouses. They're used often for mahjong games for its members or meetings. So they're not open to the public. So what you're seeing here is really rare footage. We're able to get in when we met a member, and that member got permission to let us come in and allow Dick to take photos. A play called King of the Yees came to San Francisco last year. It was written by Lauren Yee, who grew up in San Francisco and went to Chinatown association meetings a lot with her family. This is Larry Yee, her father. He's standing in front of a series of photos of past presidents. We're at the Yee Association headquarters. And after the visit, it couldn't have been timed more appropriately, but a man runs up to Larry and shakes his hand and congratulates him on his famous daughter in her play. And we thought it was rigged, but it just turns out that everyone in Chinatown knows everybody. You can't walk down the street and not recognize somebody you know. The largest of these associations is called the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, or otherwise known as the CCBA. And see these men all here? These are the board members, and they rotate being president for a month at a time. They've represented the Chinese since 1882 by hiring their own lawyers and interpreters when there was need for social justice. And today they advocate together with Chinatown leaders. Here you see Aaron Peskin, the supervisor on the left. Also here is Police Captain Robert Yick on the right. And we're inside the CCBA headquarters here. Now, recently they worked together to block marijuana dispensaries from coming to Chinatown. But the bigger problem is this. You see all these elderly men, these are typical of the family association leaders. So our question is this, who's going to take over when these men can no longer lead? Many of their sons don't speak Chinese, and many of their sons do not want to have anything to do with the family association. And women are not leaders. Here you see great-grandmother Cecilia Chang, and she's famous. She's internationally known as a restaurateur and known as the Julia Child of Chinese cooking. Now, during our interview, she told me about the signature clay chicken called the beggar's chicken, where you have a whole chicken and it's surrounded with clay and it's baked that way. And when it comes out to your table, either the waiter or the patron will break open the shell and enjoy this wonderful chicken. Back in 1968, she opened up the very first elegant Chinese restaurant called the Mandarin, based in Ghirardelli Square. Now, she wanted to go to Chinatown, but because she's not from southern China and couldn't speak Cantonese, and she was a woman, she was excluded. So even within Chinese, there were factions and particular preferences. Now, you might recognize the last name of Chang because her son is the co-founder of P.F. Chang. And also, she's was some controversy because we didn't know if she was 101 or 102. And it turns out in Chinese culture, the minute you're born, you're one. So she's actually both. She's 101 and 102. So there you go. This is Chinese school. It began early in Chinatown because Chinese families were afraid that their kids in America would lose all their Chinese culture and language. And that's why these were started. You remember Norman Fong I talked about earlier? Well, he was quite the rascal in Chinatown. He was forced to go to Chinese school, and he told me stories about how he and his buddies would make the teachers weep. And in those times, they were quite daring because if you were naughty, you could either get your fingers wrapped with a ruler or you would actually get spanked by the principal. In the early days, kids would learn Cantonese because most of the immigrants came from Canton, now known as Guangdong. Today, kids are learning Mandarin, which is the official language of China.
Music and dance is also, of course, very important to Chinatown and to the culture, all the way from Chinese opera, very formal Chinese opera, to Forbidden City burlesque, to energetic lion dances. They all play an important role in Chinatown's identity. This is a young fellow setting up the backdrops for Chinese opera. And here you see part of the crew getting ready for the performance. I was very lucky to be allowed to go backstage and take photos for 3 hours of makeup and and dressing up for the performance. So believe it or not, they start 3 hours before with their foundation makeup, and then one layer at a time get ready for the show. And once that you've seen that, it makes that final performance and seeing them on stage, of course, much more dramatic, as I think you see in this next slide. Another equally entertaining dance group is the Grant Avenue Follies. Now, they are a group of former burlesque dancers who performed in the 60s, 70s, and beginning of the 80s in the golden era of Chinese burlesque in Chinatown. Now they're mostly in their 70s and 80s, but they're still dancing, still putting on very entertaining benefit shows for veterans and others. And you see them and how graceful, rhythmic, and energetic they are and what good shape they're in. And you get a sense for the lasting benefits of dance.
Now, when I interviewed Cynthia of the Grant Street Follies, she told me that their rehearsals are 3 hours at a time. So you can imagine 3 hours of cardio for a woman in her 60s, 70s, 80s. That's just unheard of. Well, I thought maybe I should take lion dance, but as it turns out, lion dancing is actually really tricky. There's a lot of dangerous acrobatics involved that require handstands and flips from one skinny pole to the next. So that's just not for me. Now, I found out that a lion head weighs about 10 pounds. And in order to master a parade, you have to be able to practice, because if you don't practice, your arms will just fail you and you won't even last through a whole parade. Now, this is Corey Chan, and we named him the Lion Whisperer. And what he does is he takes damaged lion heads and he gives them back their roar and restores them. He's totally self-taught and has been doing this for over 40 years. He replaces eyelid strings used for blinking. He glues on new fur. He paints over scratches until the lion looks like new. And after the repairs, Corey says, "New memories come back to the lion. Aren't these stunning?"
Changing subjects a little bit. For most of us, a visit to Chinatown is not complete without a stop at a restaurant, a bakery, or a food market. And I know over the 3-year period that I was shooting photos in Chinatown, I would seldom get out of town without making a dim sum or a bakery stop. In fact, there is a best-selling book titled The Woman Who Ate Chinatown, a San Francisco Odyssey by the late Shirley Fong Torres. Many people have their favorite local establishment, often with roasted ducks in the window. Roasted ducks are certainly one of my favorites. Roasted ducks are never going to disappear from the cuisine scene, but newer restaurants are now creating a much more open, lighter dining environment. These are ducks at the new restaurant, China Live. And China Live is one of the vanguard restaurants for the new, what you might call the new style. The chef, George Chen, is well known. Here he is in the middle. And you can see the kitchens are very well lit, immaculate, and well organized crews. They have giant steamers making the dumplings that you see there. And then my favorite, equally giant chocolate mousse mixers. China Live offers a unique upscale dining experience in a separate restaurant upstairs, and it's called 8 Tables, and it literally has exactly that, 8 tables, each one in its own separate room. And there you can order prefix meal with drinks that easily will cost about $300 per person. Equally upscale is another new restaurant, which has a Michelin star now, Mr. Jew's, with its striking contemporary ambiance and its very precise dishes. There are also a number of emerging young chefs, and I noted that Colleen mentioned Kathy Fang, who I guess has done some events for you there, and she's in the next slide. we visited her restaurant and went through the kitchen and got an explanation and an excellent complimentary meal from her.
I found out that Kathy Fang is a Food Network celebrity, for those of you who follow the Food Channel. She's won the Chop TV Championship twice, and she's worked really hard to develop her skills and her talents. However, most people in Chinatown are not in the limelight, and this happy employee works at Mo Li Shanqi, which is an enterprise over 100 years old and 7 generations long. They sell dried duck, dried sausages, dried chicken legs, and you can think of it as Chinese charcuterie. Yum. Raise your hand if you ever had salted fish or ham yi. I love it. This is a favorite food memory for me. I used to have this when my grandmother took care of me. She would steam it over rice and we would have it for breakfast. Do any of you out there have any favorite Chinese food memories, dim sum memories, or favorite Chinese foods? Just let us know on the chat. Here's another one. My favorite is the coffee crunch cake. This is Eastern Bakery, and it's only one of 2 bakeries in all of San Francisco that makes it. The other one is in Japantown. Now, I've tried to make this before, and I've done it, but it's an all-day affair, so sometimes it's just easier to buy it. This is a typical produce market on Stockton Street. You can see the donut, peaches, the rambutan, the dragon fruit. And at 4 o'clock, if you're there, you'll see all the little grandmas emerging out of their apartments with their little shopping carts. And here they are, because this is when the deals come out. The sellers will say, "Yatman yapao," and that means $1, 1 bag. So you can get pounds, like 3 pounds of apples for $1, because it's all $1 a bag. And so that's the one thing that unites Chinese, no matter what village or what dialect you speak, is we all love a good sale. Now you might be wondering, what are all these unattractive dried roots and fungi? What are these in the bins for? Well, these are ingredients used in a healthy family soup. And these are recipes that are handed down from generation to generation. You take a fistful of that, a fingerful of this other thing, and you boil it, and you'll have a concoction that'll clear up your acne, it'll clear your sinuses, it'll help you recover from childbirth. A traditional Chinese mother will make Chinese soup every day at dinner time for her family. But unfortunately, I am not a traditional Chinese mother.
Just as a heads up, we have about 2 minutes left in the presentation, and then we look forward to your questions or your comments. So please think of entering those if you do have any. So in addition to the restaurants and the food markets, there are a lot of other entrepreneurs and small family businesses, which are the lifeblood of Chinatown's economy. No one is more entrepreneurial, harder working, and determined than 82-year-old Tain Chen, who founded, owns, and operates the Walk Shop on Grant Avenue. Even during the recent COVID shutdown, she has worked 6 or 7 days a week handling online orders and keeping the lights on successfully. Fortunately, she went online about 5 years ago with selling, and that's really helped her through the crisis. There are many, many small businesses. From an herbalist I mentioned earlier, this is the husband of the Tai Chi Sifu. From the herbalist to the florist, dress designer, studio photographer, acupuncturist. In fact, everything that the community needs to be self-sufficient, because again, during its history, Chinatown had to be self-sufficient. Other small businesses cater especially directly to tourists, like the kite shop that you see here, or gourmet tea tasting rooms, or traditional jade carvings boutiques. Similar to the restaurant scene, there's also been an emergence of newer, more contemporary, upscale clothing and gift shops as well, like the gift shop here at China Live, created by Cindy Chen, or this chic new retail space called Kim Plus Ono, which is a takeoff, of course, on the words kimono. Here is a picture from 2019 where they were holding a Crazy Rich Asians look-alike event as part of the Moon Festival. Finally, here's a closing image, and this is also the back cover image on the book. And it's one that was actually a mural in a back hallway of a new restaurant startup called Dim Sum Corner on California and Grant Street. The graphic art vibe of the mural, but with a traditional red dress, the modern camera, and the confident, contemporary looking young woman, I think are a perfect representation of what San Francisco's Chinatown is today. Confident, contemporary, and looking ahead. Now, as I mentioned, we would be delighted to take your questions. Unless I'm missing it, I don't see any questions in the box. Do you, Kathy? And I'll ask Colleen if she is back. Are you there, Colleen? Maybe not. So I thought Colleen might have a question or two because I know she was thinking of a couple questions. So here, someone asked, oh, here we go. Here is a question. Okay, love the presentation. What happened to the old Chinese History Museum on Grant? Well, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Kathy does. The Chinese Historical Society Museum is moved up the hill a couple blocks, and that's the one that we met with and got the picture of the murals. Yeah, I see someone else is also asking about that. So that's one, Kathy, unless you know the answer, we're going to have to look into.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Does whoever's asking it, do you know roughly which cross street it was near? And it is an excellent question. Excellent question. What happened to the exhibits?
Yeah, I'm sure the Chinese Historical Society of American Museum would have all those. They have more exhibits than they have room to display them.
Right.
So I'm sure a lot of them went up there. And also the Chinese Culture Center is on in the Hilton Hotel on the 3rd level, and it's donation only. So that's really worth going to when it opens up again from the COVID season.
Yeah, they are primarily an art-oriented culture center. They sponsor all art, muralism, video art, very contemporary art, as well as more traditional.
And Beverly has a neat comment. You asked about favorite food stories.
Right.
My family used to regularly visit Asia Garden for dim sum. Love trying all the new dishes. So great, Bev. It's good that you are adventurous. A lot of people aren't.
It's Kathy. It's one of only 2 major banquet restaurants, I believe, that are still open. Yeah, many of them have closed. So, New Asia and
City View.
Which one?
City View still does the dim sum.
Yeah.
At lunch.
Right. Any other questions? We have another comment. Let's see what the comment was. What is your favorite dim sum restaurant? Well, I'll give you a quick one. I mean, many are good. So I've had really excellent dim sum at China Live and the Far East Cafe and others. But I think Dim Sum Corner, the new one, which is just which specializes, it has a few other things in dim sum, very modern restaurant, brand new. I just picked up takeout lunch there last week during the week, or so last Saturday it was actually. but they have a really good variety. They're selling online now. So it's Dim Sum Corner at the corner of California and um,
Grant.
Grant, right? The owner is a woman named Janry Mack,
Mhm.
and that was her son making boba tea that Kathy mentioned, and her daughter with the colorful boots that ran away from us.
Anyway, what was the name of the cake and bakery that you love? Coffee Crunch Cake, Eastern Bakery. Go there. They're open. They're open. A lot of Chinatown's open. Just so
Yeah.
that you know.
Yeah,
So,
even the restaurants are now opening for indoor dining. It is right next door to the walk shop.
mhm.
So go to the bakery and go to the walk shop. You have to go inside the walk shop. Ask for Tane in case she's there. As I mentioned, she's 82, but she's a real live wire. She'll give you her opinion on about anything, especially around walks, but anything else you want an opinion on. She's a real character and a real survivor.
Yeah, and she speaks English because she was born in New Mexico. She was born there and she moved out to San Francisco after she got married. So her English is excellent. Just don't hesitate. She loves people.
I think it looks like maybe another question. City view is great, is a comment.
Yes, it is great. I hesitate to pick a favorite because I love them all.
Yeah, and Beverly asks, I would love to hear about Forbidden City nightclub. Does anyone have memories of visiting? Why did it close? Well, I think, it was very popular, I think, in the 60s and 70s, and many famous people came to watch it. And I honestly don't know whether sort of that went out of style.
Yeah.
I think it did.
Mhm.
But what's amazing is some of the same dancers, are dancing today.
Yeah.
And if you look up Grant Avenue Follies, you'll find some information on them. And also Cynthia Yee is the founder of that group. I'm sure there's a way to contact them. They may have a schedule of some of the events that they perform. I've gone to a couple of their performances, but they're very entertaining. It's fun to watch them.
Yeah. In the old days, there used to be as many as 10 different nightclubs, and people from all over and even celebrities would come to Chinatown, and they would go clubbing until the wee hours in the morning, and they would get dressed up. The ladies wore their furs, the men wore their suits and ties. It was really just a fancy evening out with great food, and they would go to these nightclubs, go dancing. They would have singers that sounded like Bing Crosby, um, all these Asian American singers who had just beautiful voices. They would sing current American songs from the 30s and 40s and 50s. By the end of the 60s, that era just kind of ended, and they just kind of closed, just like all over the US. These kind of clubs were just losing favor.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, and we promised to get you done at an hour, and we didn't go too much over. So thank you very much again for joining us, and thank you for the questions and the comments. And we hope that you will feel motivated to buy the book, go out and buy it as a gift for Christmas for someone, or buy one for yourself. Again, all the revenue, 100% goes to the Chinese Culture Center or Heyday Books, a nonprofit book publisher that does a lot of good publishing for California history, indigenous people, and so on. And we've enjoyed being with you. Have a good evening and watch the end of the debate.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining. Okay, Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we going to talk before Saturday? I guess not, huh? So we're going to meet with your sister?
Yes.